Well, hello, hello. Welcome back, miracle worker. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm talking to you, miracle worker. When's the last time you called yourself that? Maybe never? I don't know. Maybe after spending a few minutes with me here today, you'll start to think of yourself differently. That would be cool. That would be very kind of you. And what would be even better is if you were to start to put this into practice. So let me explain. We've moved on to another section of the text. We're in chapter 2 of the text now, part 5, and the title of this section is The Function of the Miracle Worker. So, spoiler alert, I'm jumping ahead to paragraph 5, even though we're only ostensibly covering paragraph 1 today. Let me jump ahead and assert what Jesus so plainly tells us and italicizes here in A Course in Miracles for emphasis. The function of the miracle worker is to accept atonement for himself. The function of the miracle worker is to accept atonement for himself. Your function is to accept atonement for yourself. In other words, accept the Holy Spirit's correction for yourself. Except that the separation never took place. This supposed perceived separation from God never took place. You've never left your source, and neither have I. This is our function as miracle workers, to accept atonement for ourselves. Now, perhaps you are not comfortable or used to seeing yourself as a miracle worker. So if you're not, that's okay. I insist that you are one. I do. I insist you are a miracle worker. Why can I be so confident in asserting that? Well, remember that this course defines a miracle as any shift from fear to love, any shift from the thought system of the ego to the thought system of the Holy Spirit. In other words, the thought system of A Course in Miracles. Any shift from darkness to light, from self with a little s to self with a capital S. Plug in whatever verbiage you want here. This is any shift, no matter how small it may appear, no matter how much you think it doesn't matter, no matter how insignificant it may seem in the moment. It's any shift from fear to love. That is a miracle. Your offering forgiveness to the Son of God is most definitely a miracle. Most definitely. You don't have to heal the sick in order to be a miracle worker. You don't have to raise the dead. You don't have to walk on water. You don't have to show up like a Jedi Knight on Star Wars and move boulders without touching them simply by the power of your own thought. That's not what you have to do. No, if you, in fact, are able to do any of those things, great. Give that ability over to the Holy Spirit. Give that over to your inner teacher so you don't go wrong and amok and use it to inflate ego identity. Yeah, right? My point here is you don't have to do any of these things in order to be a full-fledged miracle worker. Remember, one of the very first statements of this course, in fact, after the introduction, it is the first statement. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. They're all the same. They're all the same. Therefore, you are a miracle worker because you have, along with everyone else that lives, the ability to choose love or fear. The ability to choose thought systems right here, right now, in the present moment. This makes you a miracle worker. So I invite you to make the choice for love, for God, for the direction of your inner teacher. Yeah, do that and see how much differently you begin to experience the world. Do it. I invite you to. It's pretty cool. When words fail, we can always just say it's pretty cool, because the experiences that we're pointing at here are actually beyond words, and they cannot be described in language. Other than let's just point at it and say, it's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So Jesus tells us here in the first paragraph, which is all we're going to cover, by the way, today. There's plenty to say about it. Is that before we can undertake our function as miracle workers, it's important for us to understand the fear of release. Yeah, it's important for us to understand the fear of release. So, despite having been on a spiritual path for maybe this entire lifetime, maybe more than one lifetime, maybe for the last week or so, if you just jumped on one and became interested in it, right? However much time you've spent practicing, we're not fully awakened at this moment because of the fear of release. When we identify with the ego, release actually looks like death. It looks like our complete destruction. To the ego, of course, it's destruction. When we set it aside completely, it's gone. And we're right where we've always been, at home in God. Total perfect oneness, the experience of perfect oneness, is in fact what heaven is. There's no ego in that. There's no separation of any kind. So, yes, to the ego, our awakening is, in fact, its end. It knows this and fears this. It's fear itself, anyway. So, of course, it's afraid of that. So, this fear of release is ingrained. And as we go forth on the path, it may be surprising and shocking, even sometimes, isn't it, how deeply rooted this fear of release is. So it's important for us to understand this. This is why we identify with a body. It's why we identify with all of the labels that we place on ourselves: ethnic group, nationality, gender, all of that, even species, everything, every label that we place on ourselves. That's not who we are. But when we identify with that, letting go of that seems scary, doesn't it? This is why most of us, by the way, are given a gradual program of awakening. If we were to experience our oneness with God in a blinding flash, many people would not be ready for that and would panic and freak out. And that's not a kind and skillful thing to do, is it? To induce even more panic when someone's already panic stricken. Therefore, we have a loving, kind, and really it is gentle, program of awakening, which we can dive into with all of our being and energy and accelerate. The miracle does save time. We're not in charge of that. The Holy Spirit is in charge of that. Our job is to simply show up and forgive. We forgive what we're experiencing. We forgive what's right in front of us. So Jesus goes on to clarify here in paragraph 1 something that we've said before. It's an idea that we've heard before here many times, and that this course operates at the level of the mind. That's where it's needed. Only the mind can create, therefore only the mind can miscreate. The body cannot create, and spirit, who we are as one with God, spirit is already perfect as it is. Who we really are does not need any correction whatsoever. We're using the mind here in the present moment to choose between our identity, capital I, our identity as spirit, and the ego, this fragile human body that decays and loses its umph. In fact, it loses its vitality completely. It's very temporary. And happily, it's not who we are. So we use the mind to choose love or fear, God or the ego, life or death, if you want to put it that way. We use the present moment to choose. This course operates at the level of the mind. Only mind can truly be said to create here, and it can also miscreate. So we choose the guidance of the Holy Spirit. We choose love. The body is simply a learning device for the mind. In and of itself, it has no creative ability whatsoever. It does exactly what the mind directs it to do. If the mind identifies as a human being, a self-sustaining survival unit, with no other purpose than to accumulate mass amounts of money and shiny shit stuff, go forth and compete and conquer and vanquish all living things in a show of your brute force and power and immanent wisdom, right? If that's what you want to see, then the mind sends the body to look for that. If you want the peace of God, the mind has you look for that. And there's actually no place to look. It's who we are. So we accept this for ourselves. We accept atonement. We accept the correction of our perception. That's the Holy Spirit's correction. We accept this for ourselves, and we change our perception. We perceive truly. This is a choice that we make. The mind is where all of the action is. This course is not a course on manifesting your desires here in the world. Now, I know that a large segment of what passes for spirituality these days has to do with what people call manifestation, with getting what you want. So what do you want? Do you want the peace of God, or do you want more money and stuff? Nothing against money. It buys us things. It keeps the lights on when we pay the bill. It keeps us fed. It keeps us clothed. It keeps the internet on so we can converse with each other. Yeah, nothing wrong with it per se. We're invited here in A Course in Miracles to want the peace of God and only that. The premise behind New Age manifestation, right, is that when you get things, a hot, sexy lover, brand new Mercedes, bigger house, bigger yacht, bigger this, bigger that, bigger inflated status in the world, things like that. When you get that, the premise behind all of that is that's going to make you happy. Well, it's only temporary. Someone dings the door on that Mercedes, your hot, sexy lover gets into a fight with you, and the hot, sexy weekend spent in bed ends. Things don't make us happy. Things come and go. And inevitably, everything that you've brought into your life is no longer going to be there. And before that, probably most likely before that, they're going to cease to satisfy you because you're going to want another hot, shiny object. Hot, sexy, shiny shit. Yeah, you're going to want more hot, sexy, shiny shit. It's a vicious cycle, and it's potentially endless until you make the decision to end it and change your mind about what you really want. The peace of God. The mind then will send this thing to look for forgiveness opportunities, to show you peace. The body is a tool. It's a communication device for the mind. It's a learning device for the mind. A communication device is how we interrelate with people, how we show up in the world. It's not independently operating. Mind runs the show. That's why this course operates at the level of the mind, and it's not about getting physical objects. Nothing against them. Nothing against good food and good wine. Yeah, especially the good wine. And nothing against a hot, sexy weekend with your lover who turns you on and lights you up. Right? Nothing against that either. This course aims to bring about a change in our perception, a change of mind. Its entire focus is on the mind, not getting things in the physical world. The body is simply a learning device for the mind. Here in the world, it's a communication device that we use to communicate with people. I'm using it to communicate with you right now. This is not who I am. And who you hear talking to you deep down, the real message is not coming from Reverend Tomás Garza in Arizona. It's coming from your inner teacher. The Holy Spirit is talking to you. It's the Holy Spirit that urges you on to spiritual practice. It's the Holy Spirit that says, turn this video on and watch it from beginning to end, because I want to talk to you. I've got a message for you. And what I've said that really resonates with you, I don't know. Hopefully everything, but there's bound to be something in 15 to 20 minutes of dialogue that really sticks for you. And that's why I turn on the camera and the microphone every day. The mind is where the action is, and your function as a miracle worker, and again, I repeat, you are one, is to accept atonement for yourself. Yeah, just that. When you do, you'll find yourself a lot more predisposed to forgive. You'll find yourself going through life looking at everything differently. You'll have a vastly different idea of what everything is for. And when you notice yourself going off the rails, identifying with the ego and flying into a fit of rage or judging, something like that, you'll be able to bring yourself back that much quicker. That's the point. Forgiveness is something that we work on. It's something that we practice so that it becomes a habit, just like judgment has become a habit here in the world. This course operates entirely on the mind. You may or may not get a brand new Mercedes, hot, sexy lover, or you may or may not have a beautiful dinner with a fantastic bottle of wine. And whether you do or don't is actually not the point of this. The point is changing your mind. So that's what I invite you to do. Here is the subscription button, the little red arrow. I'd love to have you join me here. And I thank all of you for all of your comments and for tuning in here. It's a pleasure to spend this time with you. And we will be moving on in A Course in Miracles. A course in mind training. Oh, yeah. All right. So thank you, as always, for joining me. Comments or questions, please feel free to leave them here, and I will talk to you all very soon.